Hi, welcome back to the next mini lecture on giving effective feedback. In this video, I am going to talk about giving written and oral feedback. Let's start with the written feedback. Well, do you relate yourselves to this picture after weekend spent grading student papers? I think many of you say yes. I found myself in this situation after grading student work. Grading papers, as we all know, can be very mentally draining and time-consuming. But on a serious note, how many of you experience this? You spend hours correcting student writing papers. You hand them back to students, and then you get back the second drafts and see that there's little change from the first drafts. Well, I have to say that written corrective feedback is one of the most time-consuming parts of our teaching practice. Yet, we often wonder if it's making any difference if our students hear or understand the feedback. Alright, there are some issues with written corrective feedback. First of all, it is very time-consuming with both teachers and students. As teachers, we sometimes forget about how time-consuming it can be for students. But students could also spend quite a bit of time on revision, based on feedback that we have given. Students may not review written corrective feedback carefully, or they may not understand written corrective feedback. Some written corrective feedback may not be effective for students. And finally, some teachers may have trouble identifying errors and giving feedback. Since you are at different stages in our career, especially newer teachers may struggle with this. We now move on to some common types of feedback that we can use. Here we are going to get to know direct, indirect, coded or meta-linguistic, and focused and unfocused feedback. The first type is direct feedback. So, what is direct feedback? It is an explicit form of error correction, where we cross out the error and provide some correct form, usually above the error. Let's look at the example. If a student wrote this sentence, "I'm here in Hanoi for 3 years," all you have to do is to cross out the error to show them exactly what they got wrong, and you correct it for them. I have been here in Hanoi for 3 years. Well, the possible advantage of this method is the learners often like it, because they do not have to struggle with how to repair the error, right? It is also relatively easy for teachers because it doesn't require much thinking. However, this method may not help, since if you have given students the answer straight away, they may not be much motivated to look at them. They just put it away and may not actually learn much from the process. Okay, the next type is indirect feedback. This is where we point out the error without correcting. You may just underline or circle or write notes in the margin the things that are wrong, so you know you are alerting them to the fact that there's a problem here, but you are not telling them what it is. There is even less direct method of feedback when you could just, for example, go through the whole text and say, "There are 7 mistakes in this paragraph. Let's see if you can find them." This method may promote more engagement, as students have to kind of notice what they've got wrong, and hopefully they are less likely to make the same mistake in the future. However, this method is quite hard for students when there are many different mistakes underlined, and especially there are mistakes that students perhaps haven't worked on in the past. This could lead to maybe discouragement. So when direct and when indirect. When choosing the type of feedback, it is worth keeping the levels of students in mind. As teachers, you know your students and their education background. So if the student make mistakes because they may haven't learned that yet, so in that case, direct feedback is better. If students don't know what's wrong, then clearly indirect feedback isn't gonna be very helpful. You can only really use indirect feedback when students know what's wrong, but they just made a slip. So, level makes a big difference. What I am saying is, at lower levels, you are likely to have more direct feedback, and at a higher level, more indirect feedback as students have learned more. One way of helping learners with indirect feedback is using the correction codes or meta-linguistic correction. So what you are going to do is not just highlight for them that they have made a mistake, but tell them in meta-linguistic language what kind of mistake they have made. Look at the example again. You underline the mistake and give students a bit of extra help. So you put T, which stands for tense, above the word M, showing that there's a problem with the tense. So you're not telling them that it should be present perfect there, but you tell them there's a problem with the tense. In order to do this, the students have to know what the codes really mean. So you should give them some training. Well, there are lots of different codes you can use. This is one of the most common. Please find the codes that work for you and for your learners. From my own experience, students do quite like the idea of correction codes. And then there's focused and unfocused feedback. With focused feedback, you target 1 or 2, maybe 3 types of errors, and you leave all the other uncorrected. In unfocused, you correct all or most of the errors. In theory, in our field, we believe that focused feedback is more useful because unfocused could lead to cognitive overload. However, in practice, many teachers often correct all of the mistakes. So what should we correct? In fact, there are no hard and fast rules here, but there are things that are worth thinking about, and I think choosing what to correct really depends on the situation, learners, and learning target at a particular time. You know, students are sort of under pressure to make sure that everything is right. So as a teacher, please prioritize the things that should be corrected. It can be the organization, content, grammar, or cohesive device, etc. Alright, something else you can do to help students is to ask them to keep a log of common mistakes they make. And when they write the next time, they go back to this log. It is often going to be things like articles, tenses, preposition, word order, sort of things. So before students write, you could ask them to look at the mistake that they have made before and try not to make this mistake again. Or after they have written, you may ask them to check their work and to look at the mistake that they have made before. to see if they make the same mistake in this writing. We now move on to giving oral feedback. As an English teacher, we need to give oral feedback on daily basis. And if we always give students oral feedback in the same way, it's a little bit boring. So now, let's watch a video to have more ideas on giving oral feedback. Well, in this video, you have learned some methods to vary your written and oral feedback. Hopefully, you find it useful and have already found the way which may work well for you and for your students. Let's try some of them in your class. Thank you very much for watching and goodbye.